Thank you, Herda and Decentered Sphere, for this surprising performance. Day 2 of the Ghent Congress, a warm welcome to you all. For the new people who are joining us today, do not forget to download the Congress app. If any help necessary, speak to anyone of the Red Squad. There is translation in this room, but please do not forget to bring back the headphones at the end. And I am very, very pleased that I can do the introduction of Harry. Harry is here to represent people with an intellectual disability. He works for ManCap, and for the past 8 years, he has also worked on research with the unit for stigma research at University College London. In the past, he has worked for Inclusion International as an inclusion support officer. Harry has a long-standing dream. His dream is to work as a consultant to promote inclusion and human rights for people with intellectual disabilities. Oh, and he's also a fan of Arsenal Football Club. A very wise choice. Please give him a warm welcome. Harry, the floor is yours.
Thanks, William. First of all, it's been an absolute privilege to be invited here to do a keynote. I am privileged to be the first ever keynote speaker with an intellectual disability, a mild autism, to have this opportunity to represent you all. And inclusion and representative is so important, and today I am honoured to make history. This keynote is going to be all about rights to make your own decisions. So you'll find this very fascinating, hopefully. Okay. First of all, as some of you might know, my name is Harry Roche. I'm the Digital Accessibility Officer at ManCap, which is a UK leading charity in England, Northern Ireland and Wales. So I work for ManCap, and which advocates for the rights of people with a learning disability. I am also a co-researcher for the Standing Up for Myself project at UCL, which is one of the work I have done in the past. Okay, why am I here today? So today I'm going to talk about the rights to make our own decisions. We still have a long way to go, and we can put pressure on decision makers to respect our rights, and it's an opportunity to ask questions at the end at my keynote. Okay, the first slide is rights of people with intellectual disability. Okay, this is what I've kind of identified. We know on paper what the rights of people with intellectual disabilities are there for us to read. Only to read, but actions are not always taken. Today, there are many barriers with a learning disability are facing despite having our rights that protects them. Examples of barriers are accessing employment, as employers don't want to hire people with a learning disability due to complicated information, and it's not always accessible, and also the rights to good healthcare, but the barriers have not been removed, all due to lack of understanding in Europe. So basically, in Europe, institutions are still open, unfortunately. Okay, how can we educate people with intellectual disability about their rights? Governments should let people know that people with disabilities have the same rights, and intellectual disability advocacy groups and movements should lobby their governments in their country and remind them about their rights. Organisations should have time to review the treaty, and there should always be clear merchandisings that are sharing their views. Okay, key rights I want to talk about today. The rights to live independently and be included in the community in Article 19 of the UN CRPD. The rights to work and access to all-inclusive employment, Article 27, and the rights to an inclusive education, Article 24 of the CRPD. In an international law, every person with a disability has these rights on equal basis with others, no matter what their disability, gender, race, and cultural background is, no matter who we are. Okay, first of all, now, rights to live independently and to be included in the community. Okay, reports by the EU Commission 2020. There are at least 300,000 persons living in institutions. The number of people in institutions are not substantially changed over the past 10 years. In all 27 EU states, people are living in residential care, and only a small number of them are in small scales and community-based housing in general community. In many countries, and especially those who stated the process of deinstitutionalisation some time to go, but a person with intellectual disabilities and people with complex support needs are more likely to still have institutional settings. This needs to change. Okay, examples of rights not being respected. Okay, in the past, the United Nations has expressed deep concerns that people with intellectual disabilities cannot exercise their right to vote. In Spain, Membrial Census has incapacitated by a judge at the age of 18 and reigned that the rights to vote later. She voted for the first time in 2019 at the age of 30. Membrial is the very active self-advocate and also the Vice President of Plena Inclusion, which is an intellectual disability organisation in Spain. In Australia, women with a learning disability have been given contraception without their full knowledge to stop them having babies. That's going against their rights. And also in Bulgaria, there has a system full of guardianship that can prevent people with intellectual disabilities from making their own decisions about getting married. Guardianship is wrong. And in Hungary, courts still do not see supported decisions making as a real alternative to custodialship. In some cases, custodialship mainly seeks to protect the interests of others while restricting the rights of the person with a disability. Today, people with a learning disability are still locked away in institutions, and this is not a safe place to be. Okay, this is what my organisation, MENCAP, has reported. On the 2nd of March, a report from my workplace, MENCAP, had joined an investigation with British Channel, ITV, that have covered very shocking cost of human rights scandals and keeping people with a learning disability and autistic people locked away in mental health hospitals, many of them who shouldn't be there in the first place. MENCAP said that this is an inappropriate detention of people with a learning disability and or autistic people, and it's a gross misconduct of public funding being wasted on work, and also this is the wrong kind of care. Instead of that, we need an urgent investment in community support, including social care and suitable housing. The new annualised estimate that the average cost of detaining someone with a learning disability and or autistic people in mental health units is £237,000 per year. That's quite a lot of money, and with the average length of stay in the current inpatient, which is nearly for 5 years, and that costs raise up to £1.2 million per person. Why is being locked away still a big thing, and why is it a waste of money? It's really bad for someone's mental health. Waste of lifestyle, not the answer to their problems, and money could be funded more positive, like in community support, like supported living. So really, institutions and being locked away is an absolute waste of money. I don't get why we spend all these years not getting people with disabilities out of institutions. Okay, when it says Article 19 of the United Nations of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, okay, it says that every person with a disability has the right to live in their community and have the right to choose where and with whom they want to live with. One of the things I don't get why we did not spend all these years not getting people with a learning disability deinstitutionalised, which means into the community. Even though countries still have them locked away, I feel they could have a strategy making the transition from being locked away in institutions into the community. Those countries need to be held accountable. However, people have made it out and now living in the community. So Article 19 says something, but countries don't always act. Okay, now the right to work. So now it's only 5.1% of people with intellectual disabilities in England are in the same form of paid work. I'm going to let the audience read, give you an opportunity to read, and this is what has been explained. So only 5% of adults with a learning disability are known to their local authority in paid jobs. And it's gone down ever since, and it's not getting better. Why are we still here today, fighting for an inclusive employment? Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. It's been getting worse, not better. Okay, this graph shows that the proportion of adults with intellectual disability are in paid employment in England. The key message in 2011, around 70% were in paid employment, part-time or full-time, and 10 years later, by 2021-2022, it's gone down with less than 6%. And also, women with intellectual disabilities are even worse off. They are less likely than men to be in employment. And where is our right to work and have to have access to inclusive employment as mandated in Article 27 of the CRPD? So the UN CRPD says something that must be done, but why do countries like the UK do the complete opposite and not bother? How ridiculous is that? We're still fighting for equal opportunities. Okay, right to an inclusive education. Inclusive education is an important part in Article 24 of the UN CRPD. It says everyone has the right to an inclusive employment. This means children should not be excluded from mainstream education and have the right to feel included. This is why teachers need to find different teaching learning styles to teach all ability, including those with disabilities. This is a big challenge, but we want to remind all governments in our countries that all departments of education have to plan a new way of making education accessible. Okay, the next one is, why do countries say they respect disability rights but not act on this? Really, it's a bit of a mystery to me. It is a bit of a mystery. The reason why it's a mystery to me is that I feel we see little change, little action, and despite committees like the UN CRPD, countries that signed up to the CRPD seem to forget what they've agreed to, and or other domestic policies say something different. And this is why we are tied in knots like shoelaces. I believe we all need more accountability, not just the UN CRPD committee, but disability organisations need to be given the opportunity to hold their governments accountable. For example, as I mentioned, NCAP has joined an investigation with British TV channel ITV to have covered very shocking cost of human rights scandals, keeping people with a learning disability and autistic people locked away in mental health hospitals, many of them who shouldn't be there in the first place. What a waste of money and lives. Governments that need to spend some more money, governments that spend money on institutions are also wasting lives and never had the opportunity to make the most of their life experience, to experience freedom. Freedom's important. It's a very, very important privilege of life, having freedom. The money that has spent from government was abuse of power and abuse of human rights, as these places are dangerous and could harm others. That money should have been funded on our community support over the years, rather than keeping them locked away when they haven't even committed a crime. They haven't. Now we are all have to act and step up. Governments need to learn from previous mistakes. So that's what really needs to be done. My important message: we have been fighting way too long, and people with intellectual disabilities are more fed up than ever before. I believe too little progress has been made in areas like employment, being part of the community, rights to an inclusive education, and being valued. I am no longer putting up with this. With all this being treated, as we've been treated less of a priority, we can't put up with this anymore. So, time to get our tools out and start to fix things. Okay? And are you with me? Woo! So, wake up and smell the coffee. What I mean is by wake up and smell the coffee is the disability movement has been here a long time and slow progress has been made throughout the years. I feel we keep getting told progress will be made, but I feel from my lived experience, no. Because they seem to be other priorities on the political agenda, and intellectual disability seems to be a less focus. We still see negative attitudes. Less people with a learning disability are in paid jobs and being included in the community. Everyone can make this change happen, and people in government don't seem to worry about this. We fight, we make noise, and we do the work tirelessly. But I still think little progress has been made. That's why I am using this term, because I want governments to wake up and start making big progress as this is the 21st century. Why do I think this is resolvable? It all takes a little bit of TLC. No matter who we are, people with disabilities are humans and have feelings when they are happy, sad, and angry. Everywhere needs to be more inclusive, and to make this happen, it's not a big ask. It's not too much to ask. We need governments to take responsibility for their actions. And I say, sit down, write a list, and listen to those with lived experience. All it takes is a little bit of conversations, and change could happen. It's not a big ask. Okay, how can we all step up and act? To step up and act, we need to really fight harder than ever before. We now all have to agree, no more talk, action is required. Because after all these years, we have been campaigning for equal rights. We'll be brave, as we cannot allow anyone to walk over us and talk us down. We need to change, so making some noise will be the most important thing. So this is why noise needs to happen. We need to try and get through to those who are in charge, who's in charge of making those decisions for an inclusive life. We want change to happen. We cannot allow our governments to get away with it, not acting anymore. And this is why we need to be stronger than ever before. And we need to be stronger advocates that our rights going forward. Now this requires more meetings, writing emails, demonstrating for our rights, and we are now going to need more self-advocates with a learning disability more than ever. And this is why we need more and more and more to make it more inclusive than ever before. So, more, more, more! Okay. Positive actions, the Judy Project. Okay, the Judy Project was named after a person called a lifelong advocate for disability rights who passed away in 2023. This project is funded by the US State Department and is running for 3 years. It started last year in 2024 and will end next year, 2026. Or 2027. As it's 3 years. The Judy Project works with 5 members of Inclusion Europe who are from Albania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania and Slovakia. To achieve this goal, this sets up for Europe to end surrogatisation for people with intellectual disabilities. There are not many self-advocate groups in Eastern Europe yet, and many of the self-advocate groups in the regions are not included with other disability organisations or governments to talk about institutions. These members will work in their countries to make sure that self-advocates in Eastern Europe know how to fight for their rights to live in the community. To support members in Eastern Europe to do advocacy work about closing institutions, and that fully involves self-advocates, push disability groups and other organisations to work in a more inclusive way when they do work about closing institutions. I do believe from understanding more about the Judy Project, we can follow their lead in our countries to make sure we are fighting to end having people with disabilities that are in its institutions. So the Judy Project is a good example to all of us. So updates from the Judy Project in year 1. The Judy Project partners provided 79 training sessions, workshops and events involving more than 800 people, advocating to end segregation. Self-advocates engaged with politicians, policymakers, community leaders and to push for change. Campaigning for inclusion. In Hungary, 3 videos featuring self-advocates discussing their experience had over 6 61,000 views. And self-advocate leadership, over 330 self-advocates have been involved in the project, many of them stepping up into leadership roles for the first time. Okay, a glamour of hope. The glamour of hope is that the European Disability Strategy 2021-2030, like in Spain back in 2019, 100,000 people with intellectual disabilities were given the right to vote in European elections after a legal reform. Canada Disability Inclusion Action 2024 with four pillars, actions including employment and inclusive community. Okay. Canada was praised by the CRPD committee in March 2025 for a wide range of measures in place to accommodate persons with disabilities voting. Apologies for that. How can we hold decision makers accountable? By inviting decision makers for informal conversations, by encouraging them to get to know people with intellectual disability, works on a plan how we can get our rights respected. For example, Canada's Disability Inclusion Action Plan 2024, but be aware that there is not too much energy is taken up to get things on paper. In addition to write to MPs, contact government departments and representatives that deals with disabilities, even at local level. You can go to your council, hold your elected councillors accountable. Here are some people who succeeded in this. Okay, here are the examples of the late Sir Robert Martin, who recently sadly passed away about a year ago. He was the first member of the CRPD committee with an intellectual disability. Margalation is the first ever Spanish parliamentarian with Down syndrome. She as a member of Valencia Regional Assembly. And lastly, a man who lived with lived experience, who I had the privilege of working with over the years, and who I know is Hungarian self-advocate Laszlo Brace, who spoke in European Parliament calling for actions to close institutions. Okay, what other actions are needed? People with a learning disability can become self-advocates by joining an advocacy movement. By that should have the rights to be trained to be confident self-advocates. We need experienced self-advocates to be the role models for new one coming through. By coming through, they will be given the confidence to make noise, speak up and lobby their governments in a strong way when it comes to policy. Okay. Help us plan the way forward. Tomorrow, I'll be running a workshop with Adrian Brown and Katrina Score at 9:30 tomorrow, Saturday. I hope to see you there. And just to let you know, everyone, it's going to be very welcoming workshop and will be very interactive and very inclusive. So you will get a well treat for interaction tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. It's been an absolute privilege to be here to do a keynote and to make history by speaking with an audience. Thank you so much indeed.
Great keynote. Now it's the time for Arfi, also about self-advocacy.